As a QA, our primary responsibilities were to build the quality software along with our team. And we have been testing those solutions that are built by the team to basically understand if the system is behaving the way it is supposed to be. Because the way the requirements were defined, we know that when we have a certain type of input, it's going to give me a certain type of output. And obviously we try to break them as well. But these systems are deterministic because we know that this is what it should tell me when I actually giving this input, and hence the comparison of actual versus expected kind of comes in. In today's world, there are a lot of applications which are non-deterministic, where your input A might produce variations of output B, right? And we have to understand which one is right and which one is wrong. And in this case, in my opinion, we need to have a mind shift. And this shift should be from building quality software to help the team build quality, secured, ethical software. In this video, we're going to look at what are those complications that comes in non-deterministic system, which is essential for having this mind shift change in QAs. But before that, if you have not subscribed to TestMu AI's YouTube channel, I strongly suggest that you do so. There's some great content around testing, technology, and AI created by some great creators across the world. Let's get started with this video. So have you heard about the Air Canada story? So basically Air Canada deployed a chatbot to help their customers. And one of the customers who was actually trying to grieving a loss asked the bot about their policies. And the bot actually made up and said that they give a retroactive discount in these type of cases that the customer is facing. Obviously, when the customer actually tried to claim this, Air Canada denied. And the person actually filed a lawsuit against Air Canada. But guess what? How Air Canada tried defending it, saying that the chatbot is a separate legal entity. And whatever it says, the chatbot is completely responsible for that. Obviously, the court did not buy it. And it actually went ahead and made Air Canada give that retroactive discount to the person. Now, look at it in this way. The server was acting fine where the application was deployed. The code was acting fine, right? There's nothing wrong with the code. But the AI has lied. And that is the era of non-deterministic system that I was talking about, where your input A might have multiple outputs that you have to correlate. So now here is one more example of how you should look at the ethical and non-biasness of these non-deterministic systems. Let's say there's a company who has created a resume screener, right? And you fed a resume of James Smith and the algorithm basically takes it, the model then does its magic and gives you an output saying that it is 85% accurate or 90% accurate to the job that we have at hand. Now, if you keep the resume as is, but from James Smith, if you change the name to Jane Smith, output should not change, right? And as a QA, this is what you should test for. Is the output actually changing in this case? Is the model has the data that is highly biased towards men over women? And these are some of the scenarios. And I'm saying that there is no one way to basically, as a QA, to figure out that how do you go ahead and test it, because it depends on the use case for which you are trying to build it. And you need to be creative to understand how you should make sure that these type of things are taken care when you are testing a non-deterministic system. Which means that now when you bring the compliance, now compliance can be regionally available, it can be available for a company, it can be given by you as a QA who is actually morally aligned towards what is right, obviously after discussing with the team and the stakeholders. But you need to have compliance as a code. You need to figure out that how can we make sure that the compliance is not entirely manually checked. Can it be also provided as a code so that somehow we make sure that these are never kind of ignored, right? And that should have your data governance, right? So are you doing bias testing? And there are a lot of regional acts which kind of demands you to do that. You need to check for robustness, right? So you need to have red teams inside your organizations for all the AI solutions that are being built. And a lot of great companies across the world like OpenAI, Google, Anthropic has a red teaming concept, especially for AI-based solutions. You need to understand when to bring human in the loop for the validations, etc. Right? Now, we always think regulations as a legal hurdles, which actually stops us taking a software as quickly as possible to the production. And I think we need to come out of that mindset. This should be baked in as your requirement specifications. Now, while we try to build this architecture of trust, data lineage, right? So this is something we need to keep in mind. And what are these? So you need to have a proper traceability. You need to understand how to track back to the every decision that your model or the AI solution is providing. Do you have proper observability for that? You need to isolate the problem. You need to understand what type of data might create these type of outputs from these type of models, right? Is there a way that you can isolate certain cases? And you try to basically make this happen when you give a type of input which are not same but similar. Try to understand what type of output you are getting and try to correlate between them, right? And then debug, this forensic debugging of the data set with which the model was trained. And this model can be anything. It can be a generative AI model. It can be a supervised model for, let's say, fraud detection. But you need to debug the data and not just the algorithm, right? Because we know, you might have heard this many times, that garbage in, garbage out, but garbage in, liability out is also true for a lot of organizations, as we have seen in the previous example that I was giving for Air Canada. Now, there is a technique called metamorphic testing, right? And this is the change that we need to bring into us as a QA when we try to understand a system and try to break that system. Now, what does it mean if I try to go back to the example that I was giving of the resumes? The input James got a score, right? But when we try to make this name change to Jane or Jean, it should kind of have a similar score, right? Not drastically different, like 95% and 80%. And this is where you don't actually look at the system as this is your first step towards testing, to look at the system, look at a non-deterministic system. And here you try to understand that the first point that I was talking about before starting the video, that your expected input output combination is going to change, right? So I try to use this analogy that your deterministic systems are like your vending machines, right? So if you put some money, you select something like B4 or A5, and you know that you're going to get a soda. If you put again money and you select the same thing, you should get the soda back again. However, your non-deterministic systems are like your slot machines. You might get a 777, you might get a cherry, but it's not true all the time. And that is the thing that we need to keep in mind when we are trying to do this metamorphic testing. And we try to test the relations between the input and output. So we are no longer looking for a specific input giving a specific output. We are trying to look at for the combination of input and output. Like these type of inputs, are they giving these type of outputs, and are these systems consistent in producing such type of results? So now, if as a QA you want to look at a new toolkit, right? And I want to bring this thing a little bit clearer to every one of us, that the advancement of AI is not a lost opportunity for us, or we should stop thinking that my job is going away. It's a fair chance for us to basically elevate our competencies to basically meet that elevation of AI tech as well. And for that, you need a new toolkit. And the toolkit goes beyond output input matching, right? It's going beyond expected versus actual. You need to do a hallucination scanning, right? And you can have a scan to understand what type of hallucinations this type of solution is basically creating. And if you go back to one of the videos that I was talking about hallucination, you will come to know about the 4 types of hallucination that we have. But you need to understand, you need to be aware of the fact that which type of hallucination is right. And is this hallucination that you can ignore, or this type of hallucination is absolutely no, right? And you need to provide that scanning reports. And there are tools like Discard which kind of helps you to do that. You need to do the bias management, like the Fair Learn framework, which gives you a great bias measurement, quantify the bias measurement to understand, is your model biased towards certain type of outputs. And as I was saying, you need to build a red teaming. You need to build a red team with you, and it's just not QAs. It's the entire stakeholders in the development team who are trying to build a quality, secure, ethical software. And then the data lineage that I was talking about. So you cannot build a safe house with just a hammer. You need the entire thing along to build an entire house, and it's time to move beyond Selenium. Obviously, tools like Selenium or something like Playwright are already there to automate a lot of things. But this shift or these competencies that you need to bring in, into you, is going to make sure that you are moving from a quality assurance engineer to an AI assurance engineer, right? And the skill stack of an AI assurance engineer that, if I can bring up, is a combination of 4 things. You need to have understanding of coding, obviously. As a QA, we know that how to automate things. We have exposed as an SDET in the past as well. So we need to bring that. But you need to bring your statistical analysis. You need to bring your ethics. You need to be a risk strategist for the entire application that is you and your team are building, right? This profile is a blending of technical proficiency and statistical literacy, that I like to put it this way. You can go for certifications. Obviously, there are IAP, IGP, etc. are available. But at the end of the day, I want you to remember that don't get the certification just for the sake of getting the certifications. We try to understand the meaning behind it. What is our goal, right? We need to understand that we are getting the certification because we are masters of making sure that we are building the ethical software as far as when it comes to AI. Because the thing is that the shift is towards not just finding bugs. So as a QA or as an AI assurance engineer, you are not just finding bugs anymore. And I don't know if you can feel this emotion in my voice, because I've literally seen this happening. You are trying to test something which may decide if a person should get a health insurance or not. This type of thing might decide whether a student should get a loan or not. It might decide if a family should get a loan to improve their lifestyle or not. And if these systems actually misbehave, then you are not dealing with a bugged software. You are actually dealing with human lives, right? So you are a life, a family's trajectory just will be thrown away by a decision that is made by AI. And there are 2 things that does not let me sleep. One, people thinking, one is that AI is making all these decisions today. And the second is that people think because AI is making those decisions, it should not be biased. And this is far from truth. So I hope this gives you an overall or a foundation level guidance towards this mind shift change. And again, as I was saying, there is no specific framework for this, but it has to be morally embedded in our head as QAs or anybody who is trying to build an AI application, that these things are necessary, not a fanciness to bring into your story wall or whatever project management tool that you are trying to use for tracking your projects. These should be coded, this should be embedded. All these things that I spoke about in the last 10 minutes should be embedded into the system. So at the end, I just want to leave you with one question here that you might want to think, and I hope this question makes you go a little further into the research of how you should elevate yourself with the elevation of AI. You know your AI is actually powerful, but can you as a QA prove that it is trustworthy? Do you have the skills to prove that this AI solution is also trustworthy? Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.